You wake up and the tiredness is already there. Not the kind that sleep can fix, not the fog that coffee washes away. This is different. Deeper, a slow, creeping heaviness that settles into your bones. Your thoughts, your very presence in the world. You tell yourself it's age. You tell yourself it's stress. You tell yourself it's just life after 40. But what if I told you it's none of those things? What if the exhaustion you feel every single day, the one that makes you reach for another cup of coffee at 3 in the afternoon, the one that turns evening plans into negotiations with your own body, isn't about willpower or genetics or even the inevitable march of time? What if it's something far more tangible and far more fixable? There's a nutrient your body has been crying out for, silently, desperately for years. Perhaps, and every cell in your body, every mitochondrion working to produce the energy you need to think, to move, to feel alive has been running on empty because of it. The strange part, most people have never heard of it. Most doctors don't test for it, and yet, it's one of the most critical substances your body needs to generate energy at the cellular level. Let me take you inside your body for a moment. Not the body you see in the mirror, but the one you can't see, the trillions of microscopic power plants called mitochondria. These tiny structures live inside nearly every cell you have, and their sole purpose is to take the food you eat, the oxygen you breathe, and transform it into something extraordinary. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the actual currency of energy in your body. Everything you do, every heartbeat, every breath, every thought crossing your mind right now, ESP, without it, you don't just feel tired, you cease to function. And here's where the story gets interesting. Your mitochondria are like factories. Brilliant, ancient factories that have been running the same production line for millions of years. But like any factory, they need raw materials. They need fuel, yes, glucose, fats, amino acids. But they also need something else. Something most people never think about. They need a shuttle. Imagine you're trying to fuel a fire, but all your wood is sitting outside in the rain. You have matches, you have kindling, but the logs are primary fuel. Source can't get into the fireplace. That's what's happening in your cells right now if you're deficient in this nutrient. Your mitochondria are surrounded by fuel they can't access. And so, they sputter. They slow down. They produce less and less energy while you feel more and more depleted. The nutrient I'm talking about is called L-carnitine. Perhaps you've seen it on a supplement bottle once. Perhaps it registered as just another ingredient in a long list of things that sound vaguely scientific. But L-carnitine isn't just another nutrient. It's the biological taxi service that carries fatty acids, your body's most abundant and efficient fuel source, across the membrane of your mitochondria, so they can be burned for energy. Without enough L-carnitine, those fats sit idle in your bloodstream, unused, wasted, while you drag yourself through the day wondering why you feel so inexplicably, persistently exhausted. And here's the part that changes everything. After 40, your body's natural production of L-carnitine begins to decline, not dramatically at first. Not in a way you'd notice, but gradually, year by year, the levels drop, and as they do, your mitochondria begin to starve, not because you're not eating enough, but because the delivery system has broken down. Think about what this means. You might be doing everything right, eating well, exercising, sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night, and still, the fatigue persists. Still, you wake up feeling like you never truly rested. Still, the simplest tasks feel like climbing a mountain. This isn't in your head. This is biochemistry. This is your cells, quite literally, running out of the tools they need to keep you energized. But the story of L-carnitine goes deeper than just energy, because when your mitochondria can't burn fat efficiently, something else happens, something insidious. Those unused fatty acids begin to accumulate. They build up in your liver. They circulate in your blood. They contribute to inflammation, to insulin resistance, to the slow breakdown of metabolic health that so many people experience as they age. You see, energy and aging are not separate processes. They're intimately connected. When your cells can't produce energy efficiently, they age faster. When they age faster, they produce even less energy. It's a cycle, one that begins so quietly you don't notice it, until one day you realize you're not the person you used to be. Not physically, not mentally, not emotionally. Your brain, in particular, is ravenous for energy. It's only 2% of your body weight, but it uses 20% of your body's total energy supply. Every thought, every memory, every moment of focus requires vast amounts of ATP. And when your brain cells don't get enough, the fog rolls in. The clarity fades. The sharpness you once took for granted becomes something you struggle to access. This is why L-carnitine deficiency doesn't just make you tired. It makes you feel less present, less capable, less like yourself. Now, you might be wondering, if L-carnitine is so important, why isn't everyone talking about it? Why isn't your doctor testing your levels? Why isn't this front-page news? The truth is, conventional medicine tends to focus on deficiencies that create immediate, visible crises. Scurvy from lack of vitamin C, anemia from lack of iron, rickets from lack of vitamin D. These are conditions that present with clear diagnosable symptoms. L-carnitine deficiency, on the other hand, is subtle. It masquerades as normal aging. It hides behind stress, behind lifestyle, behind 1,000 other explanations we tell ourselves about why we feel the way we do. And so it goes unnoticed, undiagnosed, untreated. But your body knows, your mitochondria know. They've been sending you signals for months, maybe years. The persistent fatigue, the brain fog, the difficulty losing weight despite your best efforts, the feeling that your metabolism has simply stopped cooperating. These aren't signs that you're broken. They're signs that you're missing something fundamental. Let's go back to the beginning. Not the beginning of your fatigue, but the beginning of you. When you were young, 20, 25, 30 years old, your body was a L-carnitine production powerhouse. Your liver and kidneys synthesized it naturally from 2 amino acids, lysine and methionine. They did this automatically, efficiently, without you ever having to think about it. Your mitochondria were well-fed, your energy was abundant, and the world felt full of possibility. But somewhere between then and now, something shifted. The decline in L-carnitine production doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, almost imperceptible. By your 40s, production has decreased by roughly 15 to 20%. By your 50s and 60s, that number can climb to 30% or more. And unlike some age-related changes that are purely cosmetic, this one strikes at the very foundation of how your body functions. Your muscles, which contain 95% of your body's L-carnitine stores, begin to lose their reserves. Your heart, which beats 100,000 times a day and requires enormous amounts of energy, starts to run on less fuel. Your brain, that magnificent 3-pound universe of thought and feeling, begins to experience brownouts, moments when the lights dim, when focus becomes harder, when memory feels just slightly out of reach. And here's something most people do, unrealize. Diet alone often isn't enough to compensate for this decline. Yes, L-carnitine is found in food, primarily in red meat, with smaller amounts in poultry, fish, and dairy. But even if you're eating these foods regularly, the amount you absorb and the amount your aging body needs may not align. Vegetarians and vegans face an even greater challenge. Plant foods contain virtually no L-carnitine. For those following plant-based diets, the body must rely entirely on internal synthesis, a process that, as we've established, becomes less efficient with age. Studies have shown that vegetarians often have significantly lower L-carnitine levels than omnivores, which may contribute to some of the fatigue that people occasionally experience when transitioning to plant-based eating. This isn't a judgment. It's simply biology. Your body has needs, and when those needs aren't met, whether through diet, supplementation, or internal production, consequences follow. But let's return to the mechanism itself, because understanding how L-carnitine works transforms how you see your own fatigue. Imagine your mitochondria as tiny furnaces. To keep those furnaces burning, they need fuel delivered to them. Glucose, the sugar from carbohydrates, can enter the mitochondria relatively easily. It's like kindling, quick to burn, providing fast energy. But fatty acids, the energy-dense fuel from the fats you eat, are different. They're like heavy logs that burn slowly and powerfully, providing sustained energy for hours. The problem: fatty acids are too large to cross the mitochondrial membrane on their own. They need a transporter. They need L-carnitine binds to these fatty acids in the space between your cells and your mitochondria. It wraps around them, creates a molecular complex, and shuttles them through a specialized gateway in the mitochondrial membrane. Once inside, the fatty acids are released, broken down through a process called beta oxidation, and transformed into ATP, pure cellular energy. Without adequate L-carnitine, this entire system grinds to a halt. The fatty acids accumulate outside the mitochondria, unused and unusable. Your cells begin to rely more heavily on glucose for energy, which burns quickly and leaves you feeling depleted, reaching for more food, more coffee, more stimulation. This is why people with low L-carnitine often experience energy crashes. This is why they feel hungry even after eating. This is why weight loss becomes so difficult. The body isn't efficiently accessing its fat stores for fuel, so it constantly signals for more quick-burning glucose instead. And there's another layer to this story, one that touches on something profound about aging itself. As your mitochondria struggle to produce energy efficiently, they begin to produce more reactive oxygen, species commonly known as free radicals. These are unstable molecules that damage cellular structures, including the mitochondria themselves. Over time, this damage accumulates, creating a vicious cycle. Damaged mitochondria produce less energy and more oxidative stress, which creates more damage, which further reduces energy production. This is one of the fundamental mechanisms of aging. Not the passage of time itself, but the gradual breakdown of your cellular power plants. L-carnitine, interestingly, acts as more than just a shuttle. Research suggests it also has antioxidant properties, helping to neutralize some of those free radicals and protect your mitochondria from damage. In other words, adequate L-carnitine doesn't just help you produce energy, now it helps preserve your ability to produce energy in the future. This is the difference between merely surviving and truly thriving as you age. So what does optimal L-carnitine status actually look like? How does it feel? People who restore their L-carnitine levels often describe a particular quality of energy. Not the jittery buzz of caffeine, not the manic spike of sugar, but a steady, deep vitality that sustains them throughout the day. They wake up feeling genuinely rested. They move through their mornings without needing stimulants to jumpstart their consciousness. They find that exercise feels less punishing, recovery happens faster, and their minds remain clear and focused well into the evening. This is what your body is capable of when your mitochondria are properly fueled. And perhaps most importantly, they notice something else, a sense of resilience. Not just physical, but emotional and cognitive. Because when your cells have energy, everything becomes easier. Stress feels more manageable. Challenges feel less overwhelming. Life itself feels less like a battle against exhaustion and more like life. The question, then, is not whether L-carnitine matters. The science is clear it does. The question is, what do you do with this knowledge? The answer begins with awareness and ends with action, but never with resignation to the idea that fatigue after 40 is simply inevitable or unchangeable, because it isn't.